guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited to be doing my first ever book wrap-up, monthly wrap-up video. I read 11 books in the month of July. If you're interested in any of the books I've mentioned in this video, be sure to check the link down below. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel. So without further ado, let's get into my monthly wrap-up video. So the first book that I read in the month of July was a historical romance, and I've gotten to really like this genre. I'm looking for good recommendations on authors in the historical romance genre, so if you know any, please let me know, because this first one was really good and I just want to read all the books that are like this. And yes, I've already read the Bridgerton series. So the first book is The Highwayman by Carrion Byrne, and that is book 1 in the Victorian Rebels series. So I think all of those books are standalones. You can read them one after another. You don't have to have read all of them to understand. They kind of have characters that have their own storyline after this one. So up to you if you choose to read all of them or not. There's tons of them. I have only read this one, but I gave this book a 4-star rating. Basically, the book is about this girl, Farah, who was in an orphanage with a boy, and they have this really long-standing friendship. They kind of get married in their orphanage, as little kids do, and then they get separated, something happens, and we get fast-forwarded to her as an adult, and she kind of gets kidnapped by this criminal mastermind guy, Dorian Blackwell, and it kind of just goes from there. There's an you kind of get that captor-captive trope in there, and you also have the marriage of convenience. There's a lot of fun tropes in that book that I think anyone would really like. Close proximity trope, enemies to lovers. Like, there is so much to unpack in this book, and it's very fun, very quick to read, and I actually really enjoyed reading this, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. I already did a review on the first book, but the other 2 books that I read in the month of July are For the Wolf and For the Throne. So this is a duology by Hannah Whitten. It's a dark fantasy, basically Beauty and the Beast, Red Riding, Snow White reimagining, and I gave both of these books 4 stars. I really like the writing style and the dark elements, the way that Hannah Whitten describes the Wilderwood and the character development, the sisterly bonds that are in here. There is a touch of romance, but not really. It's not really so much about that as the fantasy and the story around these 2 sisters. The first book, For the Wolf, is mostly around Red, and the second book is mostly about her sister, and her name is Neve. Definitely recommend these if you are into world building, darker elements, a lot of descriptive detail. If you are okay with getting through that, you know, these are chunky books, but I think, again, it's worth a read, and go into it with an open mind. Don't expect like From Blood and Ash or anything really steamy like that. That is not what this series is. This is top tier writing, guys. Okay, this is quality work. All right, up next we have Nobody's Duke, because I just had to find another historical romance, so I found this on Kindle. And this, unfortunately, I gave it 3 stars. Wasn't as good as The Highwayman, but it was still a fun read. I gave this book 3 stars because it was pretty predictable. Nothing was original in the writing. I think we've gone through so many story arcs like what this story is about, but it was still really fun and engaging. You get a cute little second chance love story here. This is book 1 in the League of Dukes series by Scarlett Scott. Again, there's a ton of books in this series, but you don't have to read them all in order. Again, they kind of just play off characters that are in the first book. The story is about this Duchess, Ara, and her new bodyguard. His name is Clayton. They know each other from back when they were kids. They kind of fall in love early on, but because of societal classes and duty, things like that, they could not be together, and time goes by, she has a kid, and he is now her bodyguard, because her husband was assassinated. So he is now in charge of her and her son, and it just goes from there. If you're into second chance love, I think you'll really enjoy this book. Yeah, I'm actually reading another one right now. It's not as engaging, but I'm still gonna go through it. I think that books like these are always fun if you don't really know what to read and you just want something quick and fun and predictable to just get through. This type of series may be for you. I have a ton of genres this month. I feel like I read a little bit of everything. The next book is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. And first of all, how cool is this cover? I just love this hot pink. This is a suspense slash thriller. I gave this a 4-star rating. I definitely think the beginning was slow, but the surprise at the end was totally worth it. The character development, there's tons of point of views. In all of Lucy Foley's books, you're gonna have multiple POVs, and I don't mind that at all. If you're someone that needs like only 1 or 2 POVs in a book, I wouldn't recommend this, just because it could get kind of confusing of who's who and keeping up with all of the characters. But I think that makes it more engaging, like as a puzzle, trying to figure out all the moving parts in the story and what's wrong with everybody, because something is wrong with all of these people. So this book takes place in, obviously, the Paris apartment. Our main character, Jess, goes to visit her brother in Paris, and when she goes there, she finds that he is not at his apartment, and she immediately gets like the ick, something's going on, this isn't like him, but what do I do? She doesn't trust the police. She gets really weird vibes from the people that live in the apartment with her or with her brother, and you get the point of view of everyone living there. So the back says, meet the residents of number 12. I'm not going to name the street because it's in French. A beautiful old apartment in the city of light. We have the socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor and everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. Like I said, the beginning, the first few chapters, I think are kind of slow. And I think the reason why is because I don't relate to Jess at all. I don't like her character. I think she's not a great person. And I think you come to find out that none of the people in this book are that great anyway. But again, as the story progresses, it just gets really, really, really good. You don't really expect what's going to happen at the end. And I think that makes for a great suspense book. So I highly recommend if you are in the market for one. Okay, so if you have not read Persuasion this month because of the Netflix movie, I would suggest doing so just for your own soul, because it's totally worth it. And that is the other book that I read this month, or last month. I actually listened to it on Audible, because it's just so much faster to get through. But I did make a few annotations in here. My first annotated book. It's so cute. This is Jane Austen's, I think, last fully finished book. Everything else I don't think she was able to finish before she died, but this is, it's so good. It's up there with Pride and Prejudice. This is probably my second favorite book that she's written. I gave this book a 5-star rating, obviously. Anne Elliot, who is the heroine of Persuasion, she is completely relatable. She's down to earth. She has a very gentle and shy demeanor and spirit, and essentially this story is about her and her love of her life, Captain Wentworth. She basically wants to be engaged with him, or is engaged with him, but she is persuaded by a lot of people around her or by people in her life to call off the engagement, to not be with this man because he is not of high enough rank. So she turns him down, she rejects him, he moves away, he's a sailor, and 7 years go by and he is back in town, and she gets sucked right back in it, trying to hold herself back from her feelings that she thought she was over, and it kind of just goes from there. It is so heartfelt and so good. If you've seen the Netflix film and you were underwhelmed, I would highly recommend that you read this, listen to this, just give it another shot, because it is so much better than the movie. There's also a BBC version of this film, or of this book, that I think is also really good. The quality isn't that great, but it is more closely related to what happens in this book, and like the character development and the demeanors of everyone. So yeah, definitely check that out if you are interested in finding something else to watch. But as far as reading this book, it is totally worth it, and it's not very big at all, so I think anyone with a heart would enjoy it. Moving right along, we have a contemporary romance. I read The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, and that is book 1 in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I gave this a 2-star rating, and I did make a full review video on why I gave it that rating. You can check it out over here. This story is about Rowan, who is one of the inheritors of his grandfather's theme park, which is essentially Disney World. This world has their own version of that, and he is set to inherit or become, you know, one of the main like CEO people along with his brothers. But in order to do that, he has to basically revamp the entire park and reimagine it. And he has to assemble a team to do so. So that is when he hires Zara. She is joined on to the creative team. She works at the salon at the theme park, and it is kind of like a workplace enemies to lovers. If you like any of those tropes, then I probably still wouldn't even recommend this to you, because I did not like this book at all. I honestly am surprised I finished it. I'm not gonna get too much into it because again, I made a full video talking about this, but I just did not like the characters. I hated Zara. Other than her name, I thought it was really cool, but everything else, I thought their banter was just very unrealistic, and there is not much. The book was just very, it just wasn't for me. So anywho, if anyone has any recommendations of Lauren Asher books that you think are better than this one, or if I should try the next book in this series, I think it's called Terms and Conditions, let me know. But other than that, I don't know if I will pick up another one of her books. Okay, and then we have All Roads Lead Here, which is written by Mariana Zapata. That is the first book I've read by her. And I was so in love with this book. I actually want to buy it because I read it on Kindle. And now I want to read all of her books. So if you guys have another recommendation for Mariana Zapata, please let me know, because I was so enraptured with this book. I gave it a 5-star rating. It was a great slow burn, grumpy sunshine story of a girl named Aurora who moves into this small town. She leaves her husband, who is just not a great guy. She finds an Airbnb that is listed in this small town where she used to live with her mom, and she finds out very soon that the Airbnb owner is a very grumpy man whose son actually made the listing on Airbnb. So he is not happy that she's there, but it's too late. She's already paid. She's staying. And the story just goes from there, their relationship or lack thereof for most of the book. It is a pretty, it's pretty large, but again, the story is just really well written and it is totally worth it. It has such an amazing grumpy sunshine trope, and now I have to read all grumpy sunshines that I can get my hands on. So definitely recommend reading this book. Okay, next up we have By a Thread by Lucy Score. I decided to read this because I read Things We Never Got Over earlier this year, and it was okay. It was like a fun, quick read. I think I gave it a 3-star rating, but it didn't wow me like a lot of people. And I think the reason why is just the writing style wasn't up my alley, and I feel that it was a little too comedic for me, and I would rather it be more serious, but I still appreciated the slow burn romance. So I tried to give this book a shot, and I also gave it a 3-star rating, and I feel like I was being generous. It definitely was like The Fine Print in that you have co-workers that are attracted to each other, and they try not to show it, so they're mean to each other, and the storyline goes from there. But I feel like Lucy Score just isn't for me. If you are into that trope, or if you are into like a very strong female character that is a little more aggressive and just says what she thinks all the time regardless of the repercussions, then maybe you'll enjoy it. I just feel like everything this girl did was frustrating, and she could have saved herself so much heartache if she would just kind of listen and not always say what's on her mind all the time. And then also I just found it really unrealistic, so it wasn't for me. It was fine, I guess, but not my favorite. So I'm not sure if Lucy's score is for me, but again, if you're into that trope, if you're into the workplace enemies to lovers, then maybe you'll like it. All right, we got 2 more books. This was probably my favorite read of the month of July, and that is The Maid by Nita Prose. I also listened to this on Audible, but it is totally worth a spot in my bookshelf. It was phenomenal. I gave this a 5-star rating as well. It is considered a mystery, like contemporary thriller, but there's so much more to it than that. So I feel like some reason why people gave it negative reviews is because the story just took so long to get through what's going on at this hotel. Just to give a quick synopsis of the story, it is revolving this maid at this really luxurious boutique hotel, Molly, and essentially it's in her point of view. She has a lot of quirks. I think she is on the spectrum, either with Asperger's or autism or something. They don't really specify, but she goes into one of the rooms that she is supposed to clean regularly, and she finds a dead man, and not just any dead man. It is probably their most influential, affluent customers. So it immediately is a big deal, and she is kind of one of the suspects. Her entire point of view, we hear everything that goes on, her thoughts. She is hilarious. I absolutely love the writing. I thought it was beautifully written. I have family members that are on the spectrum, and listening to Molly's, like, what's going on in her head was just very relatable to me and people that I know, how they think. So I personally really enjoyed it. And like I said, not only do we get the whole mystery of the murder, but we get her life. We tried to understand her day-to-day routines, her trying to navigate life by herself. Her grandmother just passed, and that's who she raised her. So she's trying to make ends meet. She's trying to live life and trying to understand human behavior, trying to understand the people that she works with, and potential friendships, potential enemies, everything in between. I will say that I think the ending, the whodunit, the person, the killer, took me by surprise. It wasn't anything like I thought it would be, but it was still really good and definitely worth picking up. If you don't have the time to sit down and read it, definitely listen to it. It is beautifully written, and the narrator on Audible did a phenomenal job portraying Molly. Again, there's a lot of mixed reviews on this book, but it's totally worth picking up regardless. Just give it a fair shot and just understand. It's not, in my opinion, about the mystery necessarily, but about Molly and her just navigating through life by herself. So do with that what you will. And last but not least, we have The King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. This I gave a 3-star rating. I expected better. I heard this was a vampire romance, and because I read A Touch of Darkness in the Hades Persephone series by her, I went into it thinking it was gonna be better somehow like that. I love the story, but probably because it had something to hold on to, the whole Hades and Persephone mythology story, this was not that at all. It is a very predictable fantasy romance of everything we've seen before, and every fantasy romance, you name it, it's in here. You have marriage of convenience, close proximity, enemies to lovers, like fated mates kind of thing. There's a lot of things in here, and one of the reasons why I didn't like it, 1, the predictability, 2, I didn't really like the story arc with the witches. I'm just not into witch stories at all, and it does go into that a lot in this book and probably in the next book, so I don't know if I'm going to read it or not. I'm just not interested at all in witches. I just was looking for just solid vampire fun, so that's, yeah, check it out if you want. It definitely is entertaining. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. I gave it a fair shot, and I did make some notes. There was a couple of quotes in here that were cute, but other than that, it wasn't like knock my socks off. All right, and that is my entire July wrap up. I am so excited that I did this. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and my monthly wrap up. Like I said, I read a little bit of everything. I can pretty much do any genre, except maybe horror. So let me know what you think about this video. If you've read any of these, did you like them or did you not? I would love to talk about it. And if you have any recommendations, let me know too, because I am here for your recommendations. I am here. If you gave something a good review, I want to check it out. If you gave something a bad review, I want to check it out. I feel like I don't always agree with most people on Goodreads, so let's just have a good time and enjoy reading. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. And until next time, I will see you in my next video. Bye.